everyone, my name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a vlog that I have been planning for so long. My books have literally become decor pieces because they've been sitting on my piano for this long, waiting for me to start this vlog, but I'm so excited because today we're gonna be talking and we're gonna be starting a sci-fi vlog. If you guys have been around on my channel for a while, you know that I am not very versed in sci-fi, which changed because I used to be scared of sci-fi because I did a reading out of my comfort zone video wherein I read sci-fi for 2 weeks. I believe it was at like sometime in 2021 I did that, and I thus had like 2 vlogs worth of content. Since then I have been dabbling in the sci-fi genre and loving my time in the sci-fi genre because who can go wrong with some crazy space antics? Absolutely nobody. So I've had this stack of 4 books on my piano for so long, and it's time. In this video, I'm going to be definitely reading these 4 books for 100% sure. So these 4 are Prime Deceptions by Valerie Valdez, which is the 2nd book in the Chilling Effect series. It's very fun, super space antics with like space cats. We love to see it, literally. Little friendly boys with some space suits on them, literally on the cover. I also want to get to The Exiled Fleet by J.S. Dow's. This is a sequel to J.S. Dow's first book, which is The Last Watch, which is an excellent sci-fi book, so I really want to get to the sequel and keep going with this series so I don't forget what happened in the first one. I also really want to get to A Memory Called Empire by Arcady Martin. This has been on my radar for so long now. I know very little about it. All I know is that it is like, I really want to say that it's like a murder mystery, but I could be wrong. And then the last one here is Winter's Orbit, which is a space romance, I think, by Everina Maxwell, which I'm excited to get to because it's also queer. So definitely those 4 books will be read in this video. I have 3 others that I also would like to read for this video. So maybe August might just be like space month. I have another sequel, which is 7 Mercies, which is the sequel to 7 Devils by Elizabeth May and Laura Lamb. I want to dive into the second one, but I think it's a duology. I don't think it's getting any longer than that. It might be, I'm not sure. Definitely this one. And this one's from my library, so if I do pick it up, I gotta pick it up fast because I have to get it back to the library soon. The other 2, one of them has been on my radar for a long time, which is the first book in the Expanse series. This is probably the one that I'm gonna get to like last, if I include it at all, because I am very intrigued to get into the series, but I don't know if this tome is conducive to this reading vlog, but it's a possibility. Also, we have this book, which is just like calling my name, and that is August Kitko and the Mechas from Space by Alex White. This cover, I love it. My air is just kicking in, so I'm gonna wrap this little intro up, but yes, we're reading space books. Okay, so I can't choose what I want to read first. So I've picked 4 of the books that I am intrigued by, mainly because this one's audiobook doesn't come to me on Scribd until like August 10th, so that's not going to be included in this, but I'm going to include Memory Called Empire, Winter's Orbit, The Exiled Fleet, and then I'm also going to include 7 Mercies because I do want to read it. And I'm going to roll a d4. So The Exiled Fleet is number 1, Winter's Orbit is number 2, Memory Called Empire is number 3, and then 7 Mercies is number 4. So we're gonna roll this d4 and we're gonna see what we get. It's 1! I rolled a nat 1. So we are going to be reading, first and foremost, The Exiled Fleet. I'm so excited. Hello friends, Editing Jenna popping in here. I realized that I lost an entire clip of me explaining what The Exiled Fleet is about. Since it's a sequel, I kept it pretty vague, but I remember talking to a camera about it like halfway through this book and explaining how much I loved it. I don't know where it went. I cannot find it in my files, but The Exiled Fleet, it starts like 6 months after the events of the first book happened, and the events of the first book, it follows this crew of people who are on this ship out way far away from any civilization next to what in this world or this universe is called the Divide, and they are basically watching the Divide. And it's this bundle of people who are like society's dregs. Nobody wants them. They've just been shipped out there. Either they've done something really terrible, like they're criminals, or they're just left by society. Near the Divide, all these interesting things happen on the ship. Like there's time blips where sometimes you'll see yourself 10 seconds ahead of you as you walk into a room doing something, and they get even more extreme dream in the Exiled Fleet because of what happens in the first book. And it's so interesting, like they find old alien technology in the first book, and they are essentially the last team in the entire universe who can save the universe, because they realize that the divide is coming closer, like it's encroaching and it's going to collapse essentially, and they have to like fix that. So it's one of my favorite tropes ever, when you have the team that humanity does not want is the last team and the only team that can save humanity, kind of a thing. One of my favorite tropes, done so well, and the level of space operatic that this book is, and this book series is so wonderful. Like it's basically explained, like compared to The Expanse, which is another one of these books on the TBR that I have for this video, possible TBR, which is such a space operatic book, right? Like so huge, so intense, but in these books, we have only 2 points of view. We have Cavalon and Adequin Rake. Cavalon is I want to say like an exiled prince figure of one of the biggest figureheads of this world. Adequin Rake is like a soldier who like worked her way up in the ranks and is now where she is due to extraneous circumstances. And it's them, it's Cav like coming to terms with who he is and what kind of family he's a part of. And then it's Adequin being an exceptional leader, essentially, and it's the two of them creating an incredible bond together and becoming just, I don't know, like friends is not the word for it, and there is nothing romantic at all between these two. I just adore their relationship so much. There's this image that is in the first book where Rake almost gets spaced essentially while they're on like a spacewalk, but Cav like saves her, and it's this really important moment because before then Cav in the first book, like he has like a panic attack out when they're doing a spacewalk for one of his first spacewalks, and it's just this like reoccurring theme of them being there for each other in these really intense moments, and it's just like that I will never let you go that just keeps coming back, and I'm just like, these two break my heart. I love them so much. But yes, that's the Exiled Fleet. This is a continuation of what happens in the first book. It's them trying to do more things to essentially save everyone on their ship.
Hi friends, I just finished the Exiled Fleet. Please excuse my voice. I can barely talk, but I need to tell you, this was so good. Found family to the next level, fantastic friendships, and just, it's about finding a place where you belong. I highly recommend these books. I cannot wait for the next one. Hello friends, it is now the next day, and as you can tell, I still can't talk that well. I went to a friend's party and talked too much. I wanted to tell you guys that I finished The Exiled Fleet by J.S. Dowes. This was so good. This is everything that I want in a book. I adore it. I love the relationships in here so much, especially between the two main characters, because it is more platonic than it is romantic. There's no romantic notion there at all, but man, the stress that they go through in this is even higher than the first book, but truly cementing itself as one of my favorite sci-fi books of all time. Highly recommend this series. I don't know when the third one's coming out, but when it does, I'm getting my hands on it. This is up next. Hello friends. I am well over halfway through Prime Deceptions by Valerie Valdez. This is another sequel. Apparently I'm just getting my sequels out of the way at the beginning of this video, but Valerie Valdez writes just absolutely so much fun-filled space operas. This series follows Captain Eva Innocente and her crew aboard the Sirena Negra. The first book involves a little bit of a plot with something called the Fridge, and them essentially being like, all right, you have to do this job for us, you can't tell your team, but if you don't do it, your sister's gonna be like dead or something. Like her sister's the stakes. That's what the first book follows, and then this is just like a continuation of their adventures in space and their ties to Eva's sister and all sorts of other stuff that's happening in the universe. But I am enjoying this immensely. It is just such a fun-filled sci-fi. I love the way that we get to interact almost in like a Becky Chambers way with the other races on these planets and stuff, with like the other aliens and stuff like that. But when you get to when these folks actually like disembark from their vessel on different worlds, as well as the team themselves is pretty cool. I love their crew. Their crew is fantastic, and
they have psychic cats aboard. And these psychic cats are wonderful. They're so fun. There's so many. There's like a dozen. So that's where I am. I'm nearly done and I'm going to quickly wrap this up now. I think I have like less than an hour left of the audiobook at the speed that I'm listening to it at, or about an hour. I love the inclusion in this series of the like language that's used, because Eva herself just drops Spanish at like all times, and it's really neat to just have that mixed into the sentences, because a lot of times you'll find a book, if they use a different language, then like the next sentence is them essentially explaining the language or like of what they've said. Especially Eva and her mom, who's also in this, and her sister, they just drop Spanish in at any moment, and it's just natural, and I love it so much. I have no idea what they're saying half the time, because I took like 1 year of Spanish in high school, 2, but like 1 counted because the second one was taught by an incompetent teacher, so I don't really know what they're saying, but like I know what they're saying. Like you can infer it, which is really all you need, but it adds a layer to their characters and to like the vibe of it all. But yeah, I love these. So much fun. If you're looking for a fun sci-fi, definitely pick up this series. I believe the 3rd one was just released as well recently, so I gotta get my hands on that. Hello friends, I'm back. I just finished the Valerie Valdez book. I just finished Brand Deceptions, and that was so much fun. Again, it's a sequel, so I can't really tell you that much, but gosh, I forget how much I like sci-fi, and I forget how much I love fun books. I do tend to say that I'm like, oh, I really like epic fantasies, I really like the darker, sadder books. I really like a good, fun space romp. I really do. I really like it, and I'm glad that I have read that Valerie Valdez book. I will let you know what I rate it probably at the end of this video when I compile all my ratings, but it was a delight and very good. And I'm sitting here currently on my desk because I thought I'd do something a little bit fun and pull from my TBR jar. Yes, I know I have a strict TBR for this video, but there aren't many sci-fis in this TBR glass. They are these darker purpley blues, and I can't see very many of them. So I thought, let's let this pick what my next read is for this video. High chances are I get something from my actual TBR that is on this TBR for this video, because I don't have that many sci-fis, and all my TBR is in here except for like August Kitko and The First Sister, which is something that I just picked up the other day that I would love to add to this video, but I already have too many books on this video on this TBR list. So we're gonna pull this one. We're gonna see what it is. Who knows what it's gonna be. Hopefully it's a book that I have on this TBR. I'm not like, I don't even know what other sci-fis I have. Oh, I do have like Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. That one might be fun to read, but again, I'm just trying to pick the next read for this video off a TBR that I have. But I thought it'd be fun to pull from the jar. Winter's Orbit, oh my god, is up next. Amazing. So that's what I'm gonna be reading next. Very fun, and I will let you know what I think when I start it. Hello friends. I started Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell today. I am 112 pages in, and I don't know how to feel about this book. I looked up fan art of our 2 main characters, and our 2 main characters are people of color, and this is giving me the same vibe of Emily Skrutsky's The Bonds of Brass issue, where she made her main character a person of color when she herself is a white woman. That's like one thing that I kind of immediately I'm like a little off put with. Also, like, the vibe of the writing is not jiving with me, even though every once in a while I'm like, oh yeah, no, I am liking this, but I didn't know what it is about this book. It's just not clicking for me yet. And is that just a me thing? I don't know, but yeah, I'm 112 pages in. This is definitely more contemporary romance than anything else. It is set on a planet in space somewhere, and it's, you know, it's sci-fi in its roots, but it's definitely not sci-fi space opera that I'm used to. This is more interpersonal romance just in a sci-fi setting. And I was thinking about it and I'm like, I don't think I've read a lot of books like that. I don't think I've ever really sought out any like specifically genre romances. So I've never sought out any fantasy romances that are like really big on like TikTok and stuff right now, because that just doesn't appeal to me. I thought this might. I swear somewhere I heard somebody talking about this being more sci-fi than it is romance. But like a lot of the extra world building stuff feels completely unnecessary, and I don't know why. So, and it might be the audiobook narrator that's putting me off. He just doesn't feel like a good fit for the story at all. But he's also not a bad narrator. Like he's got a great voice, and it definitely would probably fit for something on the lines of like an epic space opera, but I don't know, it's just not fitting for me and it's not jiving. But I'm gonna see if I can just burn through it. I'm listening to it at like 3 times speed and it's not bad. Like I'm enjoying our main character Kiam, but I'm already annoyed at how little our 2 main characters are communicating, and they've literally been married for a week. I'm just, because this whole premise is that, you know, in this giant universe, there is all these different planets, and there's a lot of like treaties to keep the peace between the planets, as is pretty standard in a space opera. But one of the planets with an emperor, she's got like many different grandkids, and one of them, he had been married to this man from another one of their like treaty partners kind of thing for about 5 years, but then he got in a really terrible accident and died. So to like keep the treaty viable, they needed to find somebody else in this house to marry this person who is now a widow. Kiam ends up marrying Jainan in literally less than 24 hours. And the 2 of them immediately are polar opposites. Like Kiam is this super chatty, I want to say like almost a Prince Harry figure, but even more. Like if he was actually able to be personably out in public as a teenager, but like just, and this kid's not a teenager, he's in his 20s. But like this personable, doesn't know how to shut up, just fills space with sound, likes being around people, is a little bit of a partier, is trying to like change his ways and stuff. And then Jainan, I'm getting the feeling that he was in an completely abusive marriage, because he is like constantly looking over his shoulder and constantly being like, I'm messing up, I'm not making Kiam happy, and so he like shuts down. So I'm guessing he's from an abusive marriage. But just the way that neither of them are communicating at all is driving me bananas. And like I know it's probably gonna be fine by the end. I'm literally 100 pages in, and this book is over 400. Yeah, just over 400. So like I know by the end it'll probably be like cute and they'll have like open up and whatever, but I'm annoyed by this. So I'm gonna give it to page 150, and if I don't like it by page 150, I'm gonna put it down for now and just not continue it in this. It's not, I don't think it's bad enough for a full DNF. We'll see. We'll see by page 150, but that's where I'm at. I went in knowing this was a romance set in a sci-fi world. I'm just not jiving with it. And I'm sad because I wanted to read a cute, fun space romance, and this is kind of leaning into something that's not cute and fun. So who knows? But I will see you at like page 150 with my decision. I'm on page 150 and I am intrigued enough to keep going. So it's just bothering me. It's bothering me because I think my least favorite trope is miscommunication, and it's like sister very close by trope is like just not communicating at all. Because like, for Christ's sake, I understand if Jainan came from an abusive marriage, I understand, but this is going so slowly and it's bothering me that I don't know. I'm not jiving with it very much, but I'm intrigued to keep going because I do want to see that turn. I want to know what went wrong with Jainan's previous marriage. Like, almost to this point of like, do I stop reading and just look up like a summary, or do I just keep reading and just zoom through this? I'm gonna give it a little longer and we'll see. I don't know what this feeling is. I rarely get this feeling with books. Usually I'm very clear on like whether I want to keep going with a book or not, or I'm good to stop, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what it is. I'm usually very good at DNFing books, but like this one I'm like unsure whether I should or not. Maybe I'll go look up Goodreads reviews to see if that'll intrigue me at all. I can almost see it spelled out exactly how it's going to be spelled out, you know, with this romance and like the mystery that they're kind of setting up, like in the suspicious nature around Jainan's ex-husband's or Jainan's late husband's death. I can see it being laid out as like, as they're trying to figure out what was going on with this death, that they're gonna like find out more stuff about the guy, and then Jainan's finally gonna like tell Kiam like what's going on, or like what went on with his relationship with Tam, and like how like abused he was or whatever. Because like there's been I just finished a moment where Kiam is like, I don't understand why you're doing all these things, you are obviously unhappy, like what, like help me understand. And I'm like, yeah man, friggin' tell him that you're are like uncomfortable, or that like you just have to say something that's going to be like, I don't know, it's driving me bananas. So I will come back with updates in a bit, but yeah, page 150. Do I look up a synopsis? Is it worth me reading? I'm gonna go investigate on Goodreads and see what other people have to say. Okay, I've decided I'm gonna put it down for now. I'm on page 161. I just finished this and I'm on chapter 12. Goodreads tells me that it is a wildly filled miscommunication trope, and as I just told you guys, that is my least favorite trope. I hate it so much. If people would just talk to one another, you know? I hate that trope. I hate it so much. It's one of those things that I'm just like, I physically cannot do it. What's making it even worse is that every time these two come this close to actually getting into a proper conversation and like settling into a conversation with each other and getting more comfortable, somebody walks in the damn room, and it's happened now like 8 times, and they're interrupted. And they're interrupted, and I'm just, it makes me livid. So, no. And I just, yeah, reading the reviews on Goodreads has definitely solidified the fact that this book is probably not for me. I don't know. I really wanted to like it. Maybe one day I'll go back to it and see if I can get through it. But for now, she's a tentative DNF. I will say, I believe the next book I am going to pick up for this video is going to be 7 Mercies. We're just going to continue with the sequel train, I guess. I absolutely love Seven Devils. I want to get to the sequel real bad. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna dive into that right now. Oh, God, I'm sad about Winter's Orbit now. I'm sad about it. I hate the miscommunication trope. And that whole book is built off of like miscommunication. And one of the reviews said that like, I can usually get over miscommunication if there is a want to communicate built in, and this just didn't have that. Like there wasn't any like inherent, like I need to talk to this other person about this. I need to get this off my chest, or like we need to figure this out together. There's none of that. We're gonna say no for now. We're gonna dive into 7 Mercies and have some fun spaced heisty vibes, because that is what that is, and it's got like queer found family, so even better. Hello friends, it is now a little later, a couple days later since I last talked to you, and I'm about 200 pages in to 7 Mercies, and oh God, I just, there's something so good about sequels, you know? Like I usually am bad about continuing sequels, which is probably why I have 3 right at the beginning of this video to just, you know, actually zoom through. Yeah, usually with sequels, I'm so bad at getting to them because I don't know if I'm afraid of second book syndrome, because so many books have second book syndrome where they're just not good, you know? Bridge books, that kind of a thing. And like debuts are so spicy and so like I just wanna, or not even debuts, like the first book of a series is just so entrancing to me because you get to learn all this stuff about the characters and like get to know the world and all that kind of stuff. Sequels are never something that I reach for anymore. Even as a kid, I would, then I would never finish series because I had an issue with finishing series. I'm liking this a whole heck of a lot. So 7 Devils, the first book in this duology, follows a couple people who are part of a like resistance in this empire, and so we're following Chloe and Eris, and then there's a couple other characters that we get introduced to in that book as well, like Nyx and Rhea and Ariadne, and it becomes this like found family heist situation where Rhea, Nyx, and Ariadne are just trying to escape their lives that they've had, and Chloe and Eris are trying to like, you know, do missions for the resistance and stuff like that. Eris is actually like a princess in disguise kind of a thing. She left her life as the princess or whatever, like it's super brutal. All of their lives have so much trauma built into them. And I realized I introduced this book by saying it was gonna be like a fun space heist. Yeah, this is not a fun space heist book. It is a space heist with found family and queer found family vibes of all kinds, and we have neurodivergencies and different disabilities and all that kind of stuff all on this crew. It's not fun. It is baked with trauma, but it's still great. It's a great time. I enjoy these books very much, and I'm really liking it. The sequel is very good. I was very confused for a lot of it because I couldn't place as to what they were doing, because from what I remember from the first book, which I read earlier this year, which my memory is not that great, so like this might just be me, but where they left off in the first book, I don't know. Like where they start on this one, I feel like a little bit is lost in between the 2 sequels that I'm not
picking up on, but not in a bad way. It kind of in the like, was my reading comprehension actually good kind of a way? Vaguely like when I was reading Truth Witch and they would like drop information, I'd be like, I don't actually know if this is like if I was supposed to see this or not, but that's probably just a me thing. Otherwise, I'm in it now, 200 pages in, and I'm living for it. I'm gonna see tonight specifically. It is almost midnight though, so I probably won't be able to finish this tonight because I do have to work tomorrow. And I do have to be a human tomorrow, but tomorrow I'm gonna be finishing this because I do need to bring it back to the library tomorrow. So we'll be finishing it probably during my day as I like do some editing stuff that I don't need my brain for. I'll be probably listening to this because the audiobook is also fantastic. Highly recommend. I don't know how our narrator does it because it's one narrator throughout multi POVs, and every single POV I know who she's voicing without issue. I don't know what it is. I don't think she changes her voice either unless she's voicing Chloe, because Chloe's dialogue sometimes comes off as Scottish, which is really fun, or Welsh. I can't really tell which one she's doing. And I think it's only a duology. So if you're looking for queer found family in space and the first book has a heist, this is for you. This is definitely for you. And I think it reads more into the YA side, but it is not. It is fully adult, so like we deal with some intense shit and of course like the pylon trauma and that kind of stuff, but it reads easier for a space opera. So definitely would recommend this for like space sci-fi beginners. I'll let you guys know how I feel when I've done it. Oh my god. Hi friends. It is now the next day and I just finished 7 Mercies. I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that pain coming. Oh god, damn it. Emotions are a lot, you know? Good god. It was so good. Oh my god, I'm gonna need to get my hands on a copy to add to my collection because I absolutely loved this duology. This was so good. Oh my god, what an ending. What a damn ending. I look like a friggin' mess. Wow. Exceptional sequel. I love this found family so deeply. Sometimes, I don't know what it is, but you come across some stakes that don't really feel like life-changing, or like they'll be life-changing for one person, but not like the entire world or the entire universe. And in here, what happens to the people of this universe is so huge. It's not even, I'm trying to think of like, the Last Watch series has a mogul person guy at the center of it all trying to do like biological things that I guess you could consider biological warfare, but not like in the sense of biological warfare that we know, in the sense of like essentially just taking over. Just taking over. This has a being that has a very one-track mind that they will literally do anything at all to make the world safe for this one person. They've slowly integrated themselves into every single person's mind, and like if anyone went in for medical treatments or anything, that person was then linked to this being. And there was only a select few who weren't, like the resistance, because they found out what was happening and removed the chips and stuff. And then like the resistance who had been part of it and had been like essentially disconnected from the world for a long time. There's a word for it in here that I can't remember. The mind control levels in this book were terrifying. What would have happened if everyone had gone under? That's wild to me. That's wild to me. Anyways, this was amazing. So good. That ending crushed me. So much. Oh my god. Great books. Great books, those. Oh damn. Hello friends, it is now a couple days later and I have started A Memory Called Empire by Katie Martine, and this is a, gosh, I don't even know how to describe it. It's definitely space operatic, but set on a planet rather than in the stars. It follows Mechas, a ambassador who is going to this planet to take over the previous ambassador's position rather unexpectedly. She doesn't really know why, but she arrives there and she finds him to be dead. And now she's a little worried that he was murdered. I'm about 170 pages in and I'm liking it. The writing style is very thick and dense. So it's taking me a hot second to get used to, but I am enjoying it. So I will be continuing to read that and let you know how I feel about it as I go through. But yeah, that's really all I know so far. There's also this interesting technology that these ambassadors have from where Mechas is from, where they have like this little metal thing imbued at the base of their spinal cord, which has the memories of somebody else implanted in it so that they get like the knowledge. So she has the knowledge of the previous ambassador
ambassador, but it's like 15 years out of date because that previous ambassador never returned to give his knowledge, kind of a thing, except for once, which is why she has that amount of, you know, knowledge. So it's again that memory of him in there, and it's kind of like a memory person. There's like a person in her head, but as soon as they see the guy's like corpse when they arrive, that piece of him like vanishes from her head, and she's just like, well, goddamn, this is not supposed to happen. That's not supposed to happen. This is a malfunction, but she can't do anything about it because she's the only person of her kind on this planet as ambassador. So it's mysterious. She's got interesting relationships with the people there, and she doesn't really know what's going on yet. She's still trying to navigate everything, but it's interesting, and I'm interested to keep going, so I definitely will. But I wanted to pop in and say hi. I've started another book for this video, and so far, so good. Hello, friends. It's been a hot 6 seconds since I last talked to y'all, and I'm done. A Memory Called Empire by R.E.D. Martin. This was a lot. I'm gonna have to definitely think on it before I decide whether or not like it was like something I really liked, but I did enjoy reading it. I think the prose was a little bit too dense for me, but it was still fine. And I think the prose gave me that impression too because the audiobook narrator was almost like AI robotic. It wasn't a good narrator, let me tell you. Took me a long time to get used to her, but you know, the story itself was very interesting. I read the little author thing at the back about R.E.D. Martin, which is a pseudonym for Dr. Anna Linden Weller, who is a historian of the Byzantine Empire and a city planner, which makes so much sense because the wonderful cultural and linguistic study in this book is so cool because we have our main character who is, I'm assuming human? I don't think so, but like assumptions, who knows? And then we have the Texicalani, yeah, people or beings, I guess, who treat her like an outsider and they call her barbarian all the time, which really bothered me. I'm not gonna lie, the use of barbarian, but like it didn't bother our main character, so I guess it's not a bad thing to be called a barbarian where she's from. I'm not sure, but it bothered me just a little bit because it was in the use of like, oh, you're so silly and sweet, you don't know anything, kind of like a infantilizing way almost, or an othering way, keeping her foreign, keeping her other, which makes sense. She is a foreigner to this planet and the only one of her kind on this planet, so it was interesting. But yeah, the description of the language and how like every once in a while the narrator or the author would remind you that the language in this book is, or the language Texicalani is, some words have so many different meanings, which like the way you formulate a sentence gives the word a context, which then is supposed to give you the meaning. It's a very intricate language, which is really cool. And the way that they like just absolutely adore poetry and use it for like ciphers and stuff for messages, and like poetry is it in Texicalani, which is very cool. It's so politically charged. This is such an intricate political mystery. I mean, we kind of know what happened to her predecessor before this. It's not like some really deep mystery as to like what happened to him. The man is poisoned. Like they say at the beginning, like he died eating something. We assume that he was allergic to it. So like immediately you're like, no, he was 100% poisoned, but okay. The mystery of it, this story, is less of like what happened to him, but what he was involved in and what's happening on this planet and in its political sphere. So definitely not the like mystery space opera I was expecting, but it is definitely a very interesting read and I'm so intrigued by it. So yeah, if you're into space operas and you want to read something that has a really interesting examination of somebody who is from another planet coming and integrating in society and learning everything about society and the political natures and this whole aspect of like world building and the use of language and ciphers and political movements in a world that this girl doesn't understand completely with some really cool tech, read this one. Be prepared for the prose to be a little bit thick. It's not necessarily dense, but thick is the word I would use because it's not like an easy read like the previous books I've read in this video. I think I'm gonna try and read one more book for this video, and that is August Kitko and the Mechas in Space, because I have been wanting to read that. Like, it keeps calling to me on my book cart. Like, it's literally like right there, that little pink cover there. It's calling to me, So I think that's what I'm gonna do. And I think I'm actually starting to realize that I like space operas that are set in the stars more than I like them on planets. An intriguing bit of knowledge that I learned about myself today that I'm like discovering. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it here and I'll catch up with you when I'm starting August Kitko. Hello friends, I'm starting the last book of this video. We're starting August Kitko and the Mechas of Space. I've actually already started it. I've been listening to it and reading it for the past couple hours, and this book is so good right off the bat. I swear to God, I didn't even notice. I was like almost 50 pages in and I was like, wait, we haven't had a break. Like, it starts with the end of the world and it just keeps going. So this is about August Kitko, who is a jazz musician. He's a pianist. He's incredibly talented at the piano. They've known, like, I guess humanity has known about this day of an inevitable day that's gonna happen where these big old robot people, vanguards, they don't like to be called robots, vanguards are gonna come and basically destroy Earth. And so they know the day that they're all gonna die collectively as human race. To prepare for their final days, they're all like, everyone's kind of like where they want to be, with who they want to be, doing what they want to do, right? And August is essentially at a concert place in Monaco. It's very interesting that they're there and they basically are like, all I want to do is play piano and then maybe make out with this person because they are into this famous pop star. So there's these like last moments on Earth or whatever, and then the vanguards show up and start wrecking things, and then suddenly August is being taken by one of them and shoved into its like stomach, and it suddenly is like melding with August. Like within the first chapter, 2 chapters, things are happening, things are bouncing off the walls, and then suddenly you're like 50 pages in and the action hasn't stopped. Like, it's still going. Like, then Ardent, who is the famous pop star that Gus is into, they end up like having to save Gus. The two of them get roped into this government situation because what August did was essentially save the human race in that moment. Like, he made a decision that saved the human race. They're like, what did you do? Like, we need to figure out how you've been changed, because they can see he's had like many different body modifications from being melded with this big old vanguard. So he's being like studied essentially by all these different governments. They call it the world governments, which is very interesting because like we still have like prime ministers and ministers and stuff from all over. And August is from Montreal, Canada, which is very fun. We love that. And there's just like, it's just action after action, and I'm on page 184 and it feels like I've been reading this for 20 minutes. Like, I don't understand how I'm already here. That's how fast this is going. So good. I'm living for this narrative. Like, this is low-key what I wanted a space opera to be. The space opera ended up just being like Eurovision linguistics in space. Yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. This is proper, like, Earth is about to be taken over by all these things, but like the robots respond to music and sound waves, which is why they went to August, because August was playing these incredibly complex chords and all this kind of stuff that was like the same frequency that the robots were, you know, attuned to. So that's why Grimalkin, who is now Gus's robot, or Vanguard, they don't like being called robot, Vanguard. And that's why Grimalkin picked him up. I'm living my very best life. This is so much fun. So much fun. I could finish this tonight if it wasn't already 1 a.m. Like, I'm wired, I'm ready to go, but I need to sleep. I need to fix my sleep schedule, so I will be finishing in the next couple days. And I'm very excited to do so. This is exactly the kind of space opera that I like. Just absolute shenanigans. Give me robots from space that respond to music. This is my favorite thing. Like, I play piano. I love this. It's so good. Hello, friends. It is now officially the last day of August, technically September 1st, because it is 1 in the morning. I finished August Kitko and the Mechas from Space by Alex White, and this was so much fun. Man, this was everything that I wanted it to be. It was exceptional. There was such good music, tie-ins, but not like overly for anyone who isn't super into like instruments and stuff. It was more just like the vibes of being near instruments and finding the right chords and keys and stuff that like link people with the sound waves. And we got to see some of the universe around these people, and we got some really cool robot lore. Not robots, vanguards. I'm gonna do that every time because they're just big old robots and I love them. I think the only thing that bothered me was the relationship between August and Argent, and that's just because it's really insta-lovey, which is fine. I understand they're tied together through trauma. That elevates people's emotions like crazy. The fact that they were together in really close proximity for 2 weeks after this big traumatic event, and then like were separated and then brought back together after more traumatic events, that there's no way that's not gonna create this absolutely deep, intense bond between people, you know? But like we had an I love you after 2 weeks of like being together officially, and I'm just like, that's too soon. That wasn't needed. That wasn't needed in here. So I think that's the only thing that's kind of bothering me a little bit, because it's also one of those relationships that you know is probably not going to go well and not going to last, because we have this set up from the beginning when they first meet and they don't get along at all in their fundamental ways, but yet through all this trauma they've become like irreparably attached to one another, which is totally fine and very cute and very gay and whatever. And it's just, I can feel it. I can feel this relationship going up in flames. Sure, it could also last for a really, really, really long time, but once the events are all over and the trauma has time to be dealt with and that kind of stuff, people grow apart after that, you know? So I think that's the only thing. And I know that's my cynic brain putting that into this. Otherwise, so much fun. I loved it. The writing is so easy to get into. It's so action-packed. I loved the tech in this. And I want to reread it because I feel like I missed some stuff. But it's the kind of tech that like I could easily get into and I could easily understand, because as an English major brain, my brain doesn't work the science way or the technology way. When it comes to sci-fi, I understand very little when we're dealing with a lot of technology, right? But this was like okay to understand. I think it's because it leans into a fantasy way of keeping things realistic and like lore almost, but it is definitely very sci-fi. Definitely very sci-fi. And I had the best time reading this. If you're looking for a action-packed, queer, bursting with energy and color, I don't even know what else to say, like it has this flavor and this life to it that is just wonderful, and I highly recommend this. This is so good. I'll catch you tomorrow for this wrap up. Hello friends, and welcome to the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me for this long. If you made it to the end, to this lovely wrap up, leave me like one of the star emojis down below, because I would love to know that you made it this far. First and foremost, I ended up reading The Exiled Fleet by J.S. Duez, or Dowes, I still don't know how to say her last name, which is the sequel to The Last Watch. These two books are absolutely phenomenal. I think they're both 4.5 stars for me. Just epic, amazing, huge space operatic, but in such an approachable way. I love these. I love these so much. Everybody needs to read them. I then picked up another sequel, which was Prime Deceptions by Valerie Valdez, which is the sequel to Chilling Effect. This is such a fun space romp. I loved these so much. And I cannot wait to see where the rest of the series goes. I know the third book is out right now, but I haven't had a chance to get my hands on it. When I do, I will be reading it and loving it, because I just love the vibe of these books. They're so much fun. And I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Then I had the first fail of this video, which is the DNF, which is Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. This just wasn't very good for me. Yeah, I said in this video that it was like a tentative DNF. No, this is gonna be a full DNF for me. I just don't foresee myself reading this book. I cannot handle the miscommunication trope, and this whole book is like hinged on that and its sister trope of like not even wanting to communicate at all. And the writing wasn't my style. Yeah, it was just an overall no for me. Then we had another banger. I ended up picking up the sequel to Seven Devils, which is Seven Mercies, which I don't actually own, so I'll just put a picture here. This was so much fun. I love this duology, and I keep saying it's fun. It is not a fun duology. This first one is pretty fun. It has like space heisty vibes, but overall, this is a very deeply intense, trauma-filled book for our poor characters. Our characters go through so much, but it's like a queer found family, revolution taking over the empire style. I adored these so much. And the sequel was absolutely incredible. Such a fantastic ending to this duology. I don't even know. It was just so good. I gave it 4.5 stars. Then I ended up picking up A Memory Called Empire by Arcady Martin. This is probably the lowest rated book in this video of the ones that I did fully read, besides the DNF, of course. This I ended up giving 3.5 stars. It was really good, and I did really enjoy it, and I enjoyed the world building and the societal and cultural and political leanings of this book. I don't know. I just didn't really dive into the story. I didn't really like the relationship in here, because there is a little bit of a sapphic relationship in this, and it just didn't work for me in the way that it was built up, and some of the comments that not our main character but the other girl in this made didn't really work for me that much. But I think I'm on the minority side of that, because a lot of people seem to really like the sapphic relationship in this book. 3.5 star. And then we we ended this video on another banger. We have August Kitko and the Mechas from Space by Alex White, which I ended up giving 4 stars. I'm glad that I waited until this morning to rate this and like really think it through, because last night I was running on like a high of reading this because it was just so much fun, so action-packed. Just, I loved the combination of space and tech and music. It was just great. But on further thought, the characters in this aren't very well like thought out, and there's a few moments of this that felt just like too easy and done for the plot. I already mentioned this in when I was talking about the book last night, but I didn't really love the relationship between Ardent and Gus because it just felt too fast and too, I don't know, insta-lovey. I also understand why it was so fast because of the amount of trauma that these characters are going through. It's the end of the world. Emotions are high, that kind of a thing. So I can get that. But a lot of the characters outside of Ardent and Gus felt not fleshed out enough. They didn't feel like real. We have a group of people in this who are all like Gus and Ardent. They are the conduits of all these vanguards that we end up meeting, and they all feel like caricatures, which is not good. And then we also have like the typical government lady who's really strict. The other characters in this felt a little bit more caricature-y and two-dimensional, so I'm really hoping that the sequels flesh out their whole situation a little bit better. But because this is the first book of a series, I'm giving it a little bit of leeway because, again, there's a lot to set up in this world, so we're not gonna get everything that we want from it, right? And there was one moment in particular that I mentioned that is quite near the end that is too easy of a fix. There should have been more conflict between this particular vanguard and their situation. I'm gonna leave it at that. But it was fixed in like 3 sentences, which just felt too easy for me. But it was done in a way that, like, if they had to deal with that conflict as well, they probably wouldn't have been able to have like the end battle that they did, kind of a thing. So, but yeah, that's why I give 4 stars, because I had such a great time reading this. So much fun, and I'm so glad that I picked this up and read it. It was just fantastic. I think this was the book that I had the most fun reading, but my favorite in this entire video has to be The Exiled Fleet by J.S. Duez, or Dowes, or however you say your last name. Let me actually rank these books. We're gonna use 7 Devils as a stand-in for 7 Mercies, but we're gonna rank them. So we have the DNF at the bottom, and then we have A Memory Called Empire. Then I think the Valerie Valdez book. We're gonna do August Kitko, 7 Mercies, and then The Exiled Fleet is my favorite from this video. But what a great time. This was exactly what I wanted August to be. Just space month, having so much fun with what I'm reading, and these books did not disappoint. This one did. These ones did not. But anyways, my friends, thank you so much for hanging out with me and watching me read all of these space books. If you have any further recommendations for me, please leave them down below, because I am always on the hunt for more books that I'm gonna love, especially in the sci-fi genre, because I am branching out. Anyways, my friends, I'm gonna leave it here. I will catch you in another video very, very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.